Brian is on the line. Brian Parker, are you there?
Yes, good morning. How are you, Derek?
I'm great, Brian. Thanks
Good.
for joining us to do this today for our partner community that's out there as part of Grand Prix.
Absolutely.
So why don't we sort of just kick things off? Give the folks on the line a little bit of introduction as far as who you are and what you do with Citrix and so forth.
Sure. So I'm the Director of Networking Sales for the Southeast. So all of the networking overlays, NetScaler, CloudBridge product line falls under me, as well as all the reps in the Southeast. Now, before I took this position, I was a networking sales rep myself for Citrix for about 15 months in the North and Central Florida area.
Excellent. So here's so I know for our partners out there, they've obviously got multiple vendors that they can deal with. Some certainly have, some bigger networking clouds, so to speak. But when it comes to the networking conversation, and I know for the traditional Citrix partner, the ones that have been Citrix partners for years right now, before we did anything networking-wise, there's always the hesitance when it comes to having sort of networking type conversation. So what would you recommend as far as, the types of people that they would encounter in their customer base that they need to maybe reach out to, and when they're having that sort of network-centric conversation, what are some of the maybe key questions or things to probe for that they should ask?
Sure. Well, first of all, the first conversation is going to start probably, in most cases, with the Citrix admin. And NetScaler is kind of the foundation. What Derek and you said earlier in the presentation, it's all about end user experience, right? So, NetScaler is really the foundation for everything you want to build your Zen environment on, whether it be Zen Mobile, Zen Apps, Zen Desktop. It makes things work better. It makes things work faster. More efficiently within not only their Citrix environment, but their whole data center environment. And when they're talking, the people they're going to be talking to, like I said, first encounter, and probably most of the existing Citrix partners have that relationship with the Citrix admin. But when we talk about enhancing their environment and making the environment better, they should invite to that conversation the networking person and even the networking IT director. Because we really want to get a view of not only the Citrix environment, but their whole data center environment in general.
So what types of questions do you think they can feed out there that would prompt them to say, well, hey, I should really get my networking guy in here to come in and address some of those things? What were some of the common questions that put out there?
Yeah, so I mean, just some of the questions would be, what are you doing? Any kind of load balancing today? Are you doing any kind of content switching today? What are you guys doing to, do you have any existing projects around consolidating data centers or, optimizing what you guys have in the data center? Do you have any type of existing, or especially here in Florida, disaster recovery projects that are planned for this year? Do you have a cloud services plan? Things of that nature is really going to get not only the networking guy into the conversation or the meeting, but also the IT director, even up to the CIO.
Got it. So on that level, so we talk about like the C-level, the admin type folks. We always talk about sales is to really kind of speak to your user and what's important to them. So give me maybe at a high level. So if you had a meeting set up with someone like a C-level type individual that's main focus is on infrastructure and networking, what do you think keeps them up at night?
Well, at the C levels, there's a lot of different things, right? There's the overall project of consolidating. There's a lot of consolidation of data centers going on. And part of that is bigger bandwidth, bigger places, cloud services, things of that nature. And then also optimizing what they have. So one of the great things about NetScaler is, NetScaler is the Swiss Army knife, really, to front end the data center. So not only load balancing, content switching, as you mentioned earlier, app firewall can be your access gateway and your secure gateway for your Citrix environment. Customers typically have 4 to 6 devices to front end the data center to do all that functionality. It's just when the NetScaler can really handle all of that on the consolidation of the front side. And then the back side of the optimization of their servers. Right? For customers that aren't doing any kind of optimization today and that have put NetScalers in their environment, they've seen a 30% up to a 30% reduction in their server or increase, I should say, in their server capacity. So optimization on the backside and using what they have more optimally is definitely something at the C level that they care about. Uptime is another thing. Disaster recovery. A lot of CIOs are looking at hot data centers now. Historically, there's been one hot data center, a primary data center, and a cold data center. They're looking at hot data centers, keeping them both up and running and load balancing that traffic based on geography, time of day, application, things of that nature. So, and really optimizing what they have out there instead of that DR site just sitting out there and not doing anything. They're actually using the functionality of the DR site as well.
Got it. So that sounds almost very closely to, I guess, with NetScaler, sort of the new HA where we're positioning clustering so that folks can actually invest in a box they're actually using and not have it just sitting idle the entire time and paying the same amount of money for it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, clustering not only gives them that hot standby as far as the HA pair goes, but if you set up global server load balancing across the data centers, and it also doubles the capacity. If you've got a 2 gig or 8 gig box out there, it doubles that capacity, so you don't have that 2 gig or 8 gig and the cold standby sitting there you're not using that bandwidth. You're actually utilizing that bandwidth with the clustering technology.
Got it. So now we all pay attention to Gartner, every year, and I think there's actually maybe towards the end of this year, maybe, or early next year, we'll look at the 2013 report. But F5 owns this market. I mean, they've been pioneers in this space for a long time. I know their market share is starting to see some decline, while Citrix, on the other hand, has been noticing some pretty drastic uptick in market share. What are some of the maybe competitive differentiators that we can look at with NetScaler versus F5?
Sure. So, the first thing that I think the partners need to understand is that we're not a point solution. When you talk about F5, F5 is very good at what they do, but they're a point solution. The NetScaler can do virtually everything that the F5 can do, but we're part of a total solution. We're part of the mobile work style solution for the customers, whether it be, work shifting or BYOD or some of the other initiatives that they have out there. So we're part of a total Citrix solution, and we look to be a partner with that customer. So NetScaler's part of that. So if they sell Zen Desktop or Zen App, the benefit for the partner is they sell a NetScaler, and selling Citrix, there's 5 or 6 other things they can sell right behind that. So there's a benefit for the partner there versus just selling one product and moving on and selling another product 3 to 5 years down the road for the refresh. Selling Citrix and the total solution, there's definitely a big benefit there for the partner. Differentiators for us with F5 are obviously our Tri-Scale technology. PayGrow is so huge for our customers. You put in a box that has a certain type of bandwidth. I'll give you an example of the 11.5 box, which is our mid-range box. It comes with 8 gig of bandwidth, but it can grow all the way to 42 gig with just a license upgrade, and there's no forklift upgrade. So it's important for customers to look at not only what they need now, but what they need 3 years from now when the partners are talking NetScaler and Citrix, because that PayGrow technology is huge. There's literally no downtime when they're doing that license upgrade, and that's huge operationally for a lot of customers. The bigger the enterprise, even more important. And then we have SDX. So SDX is a huge technology. It's one of the main reasons why we're taking share from F5. It's one box, but it's got virtual instances inside of it that are basically each instance, it's its own separate NetScaler. And customers love that because there's certain administrative duties, whether it be networking, Citrix admin, Microsoft admin, security. These guys all want their really own fiefdoms and control over their environments, but at the same time, they want to take advantage of the benefits that a box like a NetScaler can bring. And separating those environments just politically is huge for customers. That sometimes security people and the application people and the networking people They want their own sandbox, and SDX allows that. Um, and there's a lot of other benefits to SDX, obviously, and we're seeing customers that are putting SDX in with the 5 instances, for example, in 11.5, and they're already upgrading, getting 5 more instances. You can get up to 20 instances on the 11.5 box. Once you get that box in there, the customer really finds ways to do it. I mean, even Citrix on Citrix, you have your Zen environment, you have your Zen mobile environment, you have your share file if you're doing the storage zones. You can actually even separate those environments simply within the SDX environment and justify an SDX box. And then lastly, clustering. We kind of touched on that earlier. It's all around one IP address to manage both NetScalers, so you can utilize both bandwidth. Not only that, if you need more bandwidth, instead of adding another pair, you just add another NetScaler to that clustering scheme, and you get more bandwidth. So, I mean, a lot of those 3 big advantages, or the 3 big reasons why we're taking market share from F5. And then, lastly, administrivia. When you run into a customer that has an F5 install base, their networking engineer is going to be, he knows the F5 backwards and forwards. It's what he does every day. It's really important that if you run into a customer that's an F5, existing F5 customer, that you talk to the IT director and you talk to the CIO, because they're really going to get the value of NetScaler. Where F5 has the iRules, which is very cryptic, and you have to kind of be an expert to do that. With NetScaler, we have really a point-and-click technology. So if that engineer, that F5 engineer, does leave, you got to retrain that person and things of that nature. It's a lot easier to train across the enterprise with the NetScaler because of the point and click and ease of use versus an F5 iRules type of an implementation.
Got it. And of course, I think the basis of this training, and I think it's still relatively new, but it promises to be a huge differentiator for Citrix, is really around HDX Insight, in that being able to really sort of decompile or crack into that protocol with ICA. There's things that we can see in there and provide as far as metrics and analytics to the end user that they're just not going to be able to do with an F5 box.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, one of the big things that that I've been talking to a lot of Citrix admins, especially since Synergy, and one of the big things that they love about it is it stops the blame game for them, right?
Yep.
When a customer logs into receiver and there's poor performance, the perception is it's a Citrix problem, and they call the Citrix admin, and most of the time it's not a Citrix problem. And one of the tools, the great thing about HDX Insight is this is the tool that these admins can use to drill down to that end user and see exactly what's going on in their environment. It's or you're having bandwidth issues. Well, you're having bandwidth issues because your son is streaming YouTube in your back room. You can get down to those type of levels to see that, hey, it's not a bandwidth on our network, it's a bandwidth on your network type of issue. And also see the latencies. If it's a service provider issue and it's not a enterprise issue.
Right.
That's a huge thing that the customers are loving with that. And then at a strategic level, the IT directors and CIOs are really loving HDX Insight for the historical data. So Platinum is key in a lot of these accounts. About 65% of our deployment in the U.S., I think, is enterprise for NetScaler. This is a great opportunity for partners to go in and upgrade and have a true value, not only with App Firewall, obviously with Platinum, but also with HDX Insight. And and they love the historical value of it, to see what the busiest applications are, busiest time of day, heaviest end users, and it's a great planning tool. When they use the historical data.
Got it. Awesome. So in closing, so any best practices, recommendations that you'd probably put out to our partner community as far as maybe working with, their Citrix partner, or as far as the folks in the field?
Sure. So the first thing I would say is if you're not selling NetScalers, it's a great opportunity for you to go in and truly show value to your customer. Start with the low-hanging fruit. Understand who your Citrix customers are. Find out what they have in front of their Citrix environment. If it's an access gateway, that functionality is now built into NetScaler. If it's any other type of remote access that they're using, it's a great opportunity to go in there and improve that end user experience and tying the whole Citrix story together. So find out what your existing customers have, and if they do have existing Citrix, not only do we have trade-ins like you were talking about for CloudBridge, we also have trade-in for the older boxes to upgrade into NetScaler. So that's one thing as far as low-hanging fruit. The other thing is, and we might have run out of time to talk about that, is Cisco, and we have a very tight relationship now with Cisco in partnership. They've end-of-lifed their load balancing product, which is the ACE product. They are now recommending NetScaler as within their Cisco validated designs as their next generation load balancing solution. So find who your Cisco customers are, ask them what type of load balancing that they're doing, and that's a great target market for them as well. As far as best practices, do some, for partners, find out who your networking overlay is, and do some account mapping with them on at least on a quarterly basis. Also, lead with SDX. SDX is an excellent value proposition for your customers. It might not, they might not see the value of it today, but they can definitely see the value of it in the future or in the near term. Like I said, every customer that puts in an SDX, they find more and more uses for it in their environment once it's in there. And then, especially for large enterprise, we definitely want to start, I'd say for 500 seats and above, and it's all depending on the application. We definitely want to start with the 8200 or the 8000 series and grow from there. And then any customer with a larger environment of 1,000 seats or more, we really want to start talking to them about the 11.5. Always include 3-year maintenance, because when you're talking to the customer, you should always talk about a 3-year plan. Include Citrix education, and then for those partners that don't have the NetScaler expertise for installation, also we do have partner SKUs for installation and integration for the NetScalers into not only Citrix environments, but in front of the entire data center as well.
Perfect. Brian, this was some awesome information. I appreciate you taking the time today to interview with us.
No problem. I'd be happy to do it.
And with that said, I'll turn it back over to Michelle to close us out.
Thank you, Derek. And again, thank you, Brian and Derek. The content was extremely valuable, and it'll definitely help our partners prepare for the upcoming call blitz next week. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the training, and happy selling.